Hello, real estate fans, and welcome to the Real Escape Investing Podcast. Something very exciting is happening on the show today, and I'm really pumped to tell you about it. The show is being rebranded from the Real Estate Investors Club podcast to the Real Escape Investing Podcast. And I want to tell you all about why I decided to rebrand the show because I think this is really cool. And we're going to be talking about things that are slightly different now in this new iteration of the show. So, why real escape investing? For me, the word escape is not necessarily in the sense of connoting escapism, right? Like, it's not like with the vehicle of real estate investing, we're not trying to escape responsibility or, put our heads in the sand like an ostrich. We're trying to escape some of the constraints that a typical life in our society imposes on us. And so what might be some of those constraints? If you have to, show up every day to a 9 to 5 job, a W-2 job, probably some of those constraints are going to look like being tied geographically. So that means that you have to live in a particular place because you have to show up to the office or because the boss expects to see you or the clients you service are in a very specific geographic location. And, maybe you're not in love with that geographic location. Another one of the constraints that, a lot of us face are financial. And so if you have the, let's say, financial structure or the way in which your income operates is that it's tied solely to, a job, then you are financially tied to that. You are financially constrained by the number of hours that you can work in that job. And one of the great things about real estate investing is that because you make money when you sleep because in a sense it's a type of passive income. It's like owning a business. Careful, not operating a business, but owning a business. It really means that those financial constraints that were once tied to the number of work hours you can do really become uncoupled, and you're able to escape that glass ceiling that so many people who are basically selling their time, because that's what employees do, right? Like they sell their time, they sell their hours for money. Whereas in real estate investing, that's really not the equation you're operating with. You're creating a system that generates money, and the only limitation you face is how efficient that system is at, creating passive income for you. The other type of constraints that a lot of people face that we want to escape from, that's a big priority for people who get into real estate investing, is time constraints. And that is certainly the case if you have a 9 to 5, a W-2 job, because you're stuck having to give a certain amount of your waking hours to your employer. But that goes also for people who are operating businesses or who have some kind of a hustle that requires them to like really spend a lot of their personal hours, a lot of their time on something. And the beauty of passive income, the beauty of real estate investing as a vehicle for creating wealth is that it allows you to have some of that time freedom to be able to get back control of your time, not to have to ask anybody, can I go on vacation now? And not to feel that crushing pressure that a lot of us feel around our time. And, the last point that I want to talk about is also, escaping some of that financial insecurity. And for this, I want to, just tell you a little story about a friend of mine who we had a conversation way back 15 years ago when I became a real estate investor. And she was working like a high power job. She had a great salary at the time. And when we compared our tax returns, like at that time, I was starting out as an investor and I was a student. So I wasn't making a whole lot of money. And, we had this like really candid conversation where she was like, Terrie, I could never do what you do. Like you make too little money and it seems so, haphazard. Like I feel like you would be so insecure with the amount of money you make. Fast forward 15 years down the line, and my friend has gone through various periods of unemployment. So she's changed jobs a few times. 2 of those were not voluntary. She actually was laid off from her job and had, periods of unemployment, which were extremely stressful for her. Our, salaries on paper on our tax returns probably look quite similar now, but there's a huge difference in terms of, the amount of equity that we have. So, with my real estate investing, I have a lot of untapped wealth that I've accumulated over time, with which my friend who's working a corporate job really didn't have a chance. It's like she's kind of churning the wheel. And yes, there's a large amount of money coming into her bank account every month, but the government takes half of it because the tax structure of an employee is just really not interesting versus, a real estate investor who has the opportunity to have all kinds of tax deductions. And the irony is that actually what she does is more insecure than what I do because I'm only dependent on all of my tenants paying their rent. And if somebody doesn't pay, well, then unfortunately, either they need to pay or they need to leave eventually. And so, and let's say I have 30 tenants, if only one of them is not paying the rent, well, that's something that I can absorb over my whole portfolio. It's not like necessarily, if you have a job, like either you have the job or you don't have the job. And that's like, if someone's going to turn off the tap on your income basically on a dime and you don't have a whole lot to say about it. So like, ironically, a lot of people are afraid to get into real estate investing because they're like, oh, I don't know, like, can I afford, to take this leap into insecurity? Well, my argument would be to rather see this as a doorway, an escape, real estate investing escape from the insecurity that can be associated with a W-2 or a 9-to-5 job. So for the remainder of this episode, what I want to do is just kind of go through each of those types of escape that real estate can afford us and kind of talk about them one by one and, get excited about the fact that the show going forward is going to be about escaping some of those constraints and then sharing my personal experiences, sharing the experiences of other investors, colleagues, students that I've coached really around that theme and, going through some of the things that will block us, be it the fear of leaving the job, be it, the various concerns or anxieties that investors have along the way. We're going to go through all of that good stuff in the show moving forward. By way of a first episode, let's talk a little bit about some of the reasons why people come to real estate investing. Because as we go forward in the show, I'm going to be talking every week about some theme that has to do with this. And the first one is financial stability and security. So I think a lot of people, be it that they feel, the job market can be insecure. The stock market can be insecure. If you're working as an employee, you don't necessarily control if your company is going to go through layoffs or if some economic cycle is going to come and knock you in one direction or the other. You also don't control, if your boss decides to change your hours or if they decide you have to move or some other unpleasant thing might happen. The fact of having, your family's livelihood, your livelihood tied to that one source of income that you don't control is extremely stressful for people. And I'm not sure if, I were setting myself up that I would necessarily want to tie myself to something like that. But we can get into that a little bit more later on. So the passive income that you can get by investing in real estate really can help people, be more financially stable and secure. And I'll want to tell you the story of, some clients of mine that I started working with. It's been really quite a while ago. They're both young professionals. They came to me when they didn't have a very clear idea of where they wanted to go in their investing journey. They just wanted to initially buy a condo. So we bought one condo. Actually, it was the guy of the couple who bought one condo. And that worked so well. He was able to immediately rent it out that then his wife came to me and had, a similar objective to purchase 2 condos. And then they also set themselves up as house hackers. So instead of purchasing a single family home or, an expensive condo that would have eaten up a lot of their borrowing capacity and a lot of, their capital, they just decided to keep renting a fairly cheap rent controlled apartment. They actually even rented out one of the rooms. And at one point were running an Airbnb and it was a 3-bedroom. And so they were like using the other 2 rooms to make additional income. So not only did they have these, investments running, they also had house hacked. And as a result, were able to reduce their monthly rent expense to about $400. So, that's like really incredible. And then I've been working with this couple for, it's been, I guess, 7-8 years since they purchased their first condo with me. And both of them are professionals. So they have quite demanding jobs and they don't necessarily have a project to leave those jobs. But the fact of having these investments on the side and having house hacked means that they're able to take advantage of better opportunities that come along. And I'll give you an example. The man in the couple at one point just really was not happy. He was working at a bank and he wasn't happy with the fact that he wasn't able to progress as he wanted to. There were not those opportunities for advancement. And he decided that the best way to advance would be to actually quit his job at the bank and spend some time looking around for better opportunities. And then maybe, also travel a little bit in between. So that's exactly what he did. But he was able to do that because he had passive income coming in from his investments. And he was able to do that because he house hacked and reduced his expenditure, his rent expenditure, to a point at which the savings that he had and the, unemployment insurance that he got was sufficient to take care of him during that period. And so, what I want you to take away from this is that this, opportunity of real estate investing as a solution to those problems, even if you have a professional job and you have no interest in quitting that professional job, the fact of being, having a real estate investor's mindset through how you manage your home finances and how you acquire passive income is going to give you all kinds of flexibility in the way that you run your life and make you less dependent, less contingent on whatever your job might be doing or whatever particular economic cycle might be doing, just because you've optimized the main expense in your life, which for most people is their housing expense. The next thing, and this really ties in very well, is that people come to real estate investing in order to reduce debt and have financial freedom. So definitely with building passive income, and let's make the distinction between passive income, which you get from an investment that's sitting somewhere and is running and paying you money while you sleep. That's very different from active income, which involves some kind of hustle. The most common form of active income, obviously, is your job. But even if you're self-employed or you're doing something like being a real estate broker or having a small business that you're working in, so a business operator, not a business owner, those kind of things involve active income generation. And it means that you have to be doing something, you have to be hustling in some way to have that money coming in. And so getting a passive income stream, getting that passive income stream to progressively cover more and more of your living expenses is the path to financial freedom. So a lot of real estate investors or people who want to get into real estate investing, it's like an aspect of attaining that financial freedom. And, I could go on and on about this, and I definitely will have episodes on this coming up later on, but bear in mind that financial freedom is not an on-off switch. It's an incremental process. And anybody who has attained financial freedom will tell you that what happens is that slowly over time, passive income gradually replaces the other active things that you might be doing. And there are actually phases on the journey to financial freedom, of which the first is financial independence, in which case you're able to cover just your basic living expenses with your passive income. Now, you might still need to work or, have some kind of other activity to supplement that in order to, cover the extras. But that first goal of financial independence just means being able to cover your living expenses with passive investments, or even with something as simple as house hacking. And the more you're able to reduce those overhead expenses, to reduce those lifestyle expenses, specifically when they come to housing, is going to really allow you to reach that goal of financial independence much faster than you would if you have just a very inefficient financial structure to your life. Another reason why people end up getting into real estate investing, or why I see people come to me, is retirement planning. So whether you live in Canada or whether you live in the States, we are not in an ecosystem where you can rely on the government pension as a way to, sail you into the sunset. Now, a lot of companies have programs, RRSP programs, or in the US, 401k programs. And a lot of people will be just kind of blindly contributing to that and relying on it as a way to build up a retirement portfolio. Well, those kind of vehicles are definitely useful, but the returns that you can get, because basically most of the time, those investments end up being stock investments. And so what then happens is you're subject to the volatility of the stock market, number one. And number two, the rate at which the returns that you can get in the stock market, which at the best of times, we're talking 8 to 10% in not super volatile, not super risky investments, is just dwarfed by the kind of returns that you can get in real estate investing if you're diligent about it and you kind of do it in a researched way. And, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about, I have some partners that I work with who actually have invested their family's retirement money in real estate. And so what that looks like is that it, provides the family, or provides the parents who are looking at retirement, to have a safe revenue generating vehicle that's sitting there. And if you're looking at, where to place your retirement money, or to look, if you're even if you're going to be thinking of retiring 20 years from now, the fact of diversifying into real estate investing and, having that as a way to generate not just returns, because in real estate, we have different ways of generating returns. We have market appreciation. We have the reimbursement of equity. So as you're slowly paying down your loan with the bank, you own more and more of that building over time. And then there's obviously the cash flow. And so once you've owned an investment property for a certain amount of time, you're going to be developing a positive cash flow situation, which is going to give you passive income. And unfortunately, if you're investing in stocks, basically you're planning on market appreciation. In some cases, people will buy dividend producing stocks, but there's just more opportunities to, have money coming in, more ways to generate revenue with real estate investing. The other reason why people come to the real estate field as a vehicle is for wealth accumulation and legacy investing. So, what does this mean? A lot of people, who maybe haven't come from a family in which there's a lot of affluence, in which a lot of stuff is being transmitted to children, have a concern to leave something for their kids after they're gone. And I think more and more in today's world where, owning real estate is it's becoming increasingly a luxury. In a lot of places, real estate prices have just gone up, be it single family homes or investment properties. In a lot of markets, the bottom rung on the property ladder has just gone out of the reach of a lot of people who don't have a track record, whose family doesn't already have some kind of real estate that the parents are then able to help the kids with down payment money or, co-signing of mortgages. Just makes it very difficult for the kids, for the next generation to get on the property ladder. And so in order to counter that effect, I think a lot of people are interested in building wealth, building legacy wealth that they're going to be able to help their kids get that head start in life and to be able to ensure that they're able to get onto the property ladder. So I don't necessarily have a whole lot of clients who are in this particular situation, but I do have a lot of colleagues for whom one of the main motivations of what they're doing behind building their real estate portfolio is this idea of wealth accumulation. And then finally, the last, perhaps the most common thing that I see among my students is really a goal of career transition or flexibility. So I don't need to explain to you guys that while working a 9-to-5 job, working a W-2 can be a bit oppressive. It can be oppressive, in terms of your time where you're not in control of what you do. You can be vulnerable in the sense that your income is dependent on someone else to generate it. And so at a specific point, you could be laid off, you could be fired, there could be economic cycles that change. And so that's kind of a vulnerable position to be in when your only revenue source is coming from someone and somewhere else, and it's beyond your control. And then there's obviously, time flexibility and geographic flexibility, the lifestyle of somebody who has attained financial freedom through real estate investing is that you don't have to ask anybody every time you want to go on vacation. You can, or when you want to travel for work or to go to a conference or do something, it's just, okay, well, let me look at my bank account. Let me look at my kids' school commitments and figure out if this works for my family dynamic. But it's not so much anymore about having to convince the boss or how much vacation time do I have or whatever else it is. And, somebody who, once you get your real estate business up and running, it also is then a question that you have the time flexibility, even on a daily basis, to, pursue other interests. And if that is gym time, if that's poetry reading, if that's interpretive dance, whatever it is that you want to do, the fact of being, on the spectrum of financial independence or financial freedom really allows you to have that. And so, if I think of myself personally, this was definitely a stop on my journey when I started out in the real estate field, and having that flexibility from a certain amount of passive income coming in allowed me to finish my studies. I had grad school for a very long time, and I wouldn't have been able to, dedicate the effort and the energy needed to finish my thesis had I not had passive income through real estate, and had I not also really house hacked my way into having extremely low overhead costs. I lived with roommates for a very long time because I liked it, but also because financially that just was such a springboard for freedom in my own life. So that's a definite speech to, personal freedom on my own journey. But the students and clients that I've had the potential or the privilege to work with over time, it's just so rewarding for me when I get to see that they're taking those steps towards financial independence and financial freedom when I'm able to help them on their real escape investing journey. It's just such a rewarding thing for me. And that's really what I want to do with this new iteration, this new version of the podcast, is to really focus in on some of those needs that people have, some of the themes, some of the reasons why people get into real estate investing, and share the journeys of other people who have done this successfully, share my own experience of how you can hack that escape and how you can just move forward.